Recently, some people on Chinese social media have expressed frustration, claiming that doctoral degrees in China are becoming increasingly undervalued, to the point where they are as common as street goods.
应试教育就是死路一条。
Exam-oriented education is a dead end. Have you seen that job fair at Xi'an Jiaotong University? It's like master's degrees are as common as stray dogs, and PhDs are everywhere. It's not that there aren't enough jobs, it's just that the salaries don't meet expectations. You can't blame these kids for clinging to their academic robes like Kong Yi-ji. They have no choice. For example, the salaries offered to engineering PhDs at Xi'an Jiaotong are about 150,000 to 200,000 yuan a year. Can you believe that? A PhD from a top 985 university, someone who's been in school for 24 years, after spending half their life studying, they're paid so little that it would take them 10 years of salaries just to buy a home in Xi'an. That means even if your kid is brilliant enough to get into a PhD program at Xi'an Jiaotong, they still need their parents' help and wouldn't own a house until they're over 40, just in Xi'an.
重庆现在的学历已经不值钱了。
Degrees in Chongqing are worthless now. I know saying this will get me criticized, but the truth is hitting people hard. Yet parents are still pushing their kids into this cycle. They're spending so much just to get their child into a decent university, thinking it'll guarantee a respectable white-collar job. Honestly, that's such a foolish decision. The days when being a college graduate was a golden ticket are long gone. Last year, over 10 million college students graduated nationwide. The total number of PhD and master's graduates has even surpassed the number of undergrads. Yet the overall employment rate is barely 50%, and that includes people working assembly line jobs. Even so, only half of them are employed. When my parents' generation was young, being a college graduate was a huge deal. Even being a vocational school graduate came with guaranteed job placement. But how many college students were there back then? Now we're seeing over 10 million graduates each year. Take civil engineering, for example. A few years ago, it was one of the hottest fields. Now it's so unpopular that barely anyone is enrolling in those programs. People thought going to college would lead to white-collar office jobs. Instead, they're ending up in blue-collar roles. How could anyone not feel bitter about that? Others have noted that it's not just the low employment rates of PhD graduates that's concerning. Even those who manage to secure jobs often face shockingly low salaries.
现在博士都这么不值钱了吗？到时候几千的讲师遍地都是。
Is a PhD really worth so little now? Soon, thousands of lecturers will be everywhere. Back in 2003, a university professor's salary was around 2,000 yuan per month, while the average housing price in Beijing was 4,456 yuan per square meter. By 2023, Beijing's average home price had skyrocketed to 48,500 yuan per square meter. Housing prices have increased tenfold, but university professors' salaries haven't kept up. Nowadays, a starting PhD salary of 20,000 yuan per month isn't even that high, and very few actually earn that much. An assistant researcher at the Chinese Academy of Sciences makes about 13,000 yuan per month. In second or third tier cities, university lecturers take home around 7,000 yuan, and that's considered normal.
The comment section of a viral video discussing this topic was flooded with complaints. One person shared, "My child graduated with a PhD and became a teacher at a junior college in Suzhou, earning only 6,000 yuan a month." Another remarked, "When something is rare, it's valuable. PhDs are losing value because there are just too many of them." A graduate from a top-tier 985 university, under the pseudonym Wang Lei, stepped out of academia full of hope, believing his high degree would earn him respect and rewards in society. However, he faced repeated rejections during his job search. Companies considered him too old, his salary expectations too high, and his practical experience insufficient. Universities and research institutions either had limited positions or set impossible standards. After a year of struggling, Wang was still relying on his family for support. His PhD, once a source of pride, had become a heavy burden. On lower-level jobs, employers felt his qualifications were overkill, while for high-level roles, he lacked the necessary experience. This is not an isolated case. In recent years, many young PhD holders in China have found themselves in similar situations. Despite publishing numerous papers and articles in prestigious journals, they struggled to land desirable positions. One 42-year-old PhD graduate with a degree in Marxist theory faced unprecedented challenges in her job search. She hoped to leave her small town and secure a better future for her family, but reality hit her hard. Her age was a barrier, and her field of study held little value in the job market. A professor's blunt advice left her disheartened. Unless she was willing to work in remote areas, her aspirations were unlikely to be fulfilled. There was a time when PhD holders in China were celebrated as a pride of the nation, enjoying high social status. However, this prestigious title seems to be losing its luster. Experts point to one main factor: unchecked expansion of doctoral programs. Since the late 1980s, China's population growth rate has slowed, while the number of graduate admissions has surged. Research shows a weak correlation between these two trends, with a correlation coefficient of just 0.13. From 1981 to 2020, China's GDP grew at an average annual rate of 14.3%, but the correlation between GDP growth and graduate admissions growth was almost non-existent, at negative 0.006. In 1978, the Chinese Communist Party resumed doctoral education, admitting only 18 PhD students nationwide that year. In 1981, the academic degree system was formally established. Throughout the 1980s, the number of admitted PhD students remained small. However, starting in the 1990s, doctoral admissions began expanding rapidly. Universities increased the number of doctoral programs and admissions to boost research output and academic rankings. PhD graduates became valuable for scientific evaluations and paper production, making them a weapon in the inter-university competition. By 1995, the number of doctoral admissions exceeded 10,000 for the first time. In 1999, PhD graduates also surpassed 10,000. By 2007, China had more science and engineering PhDs than the United States. In 2017, doctoral admissions reached nearly 83,900. Between 2017 and 2023, the number of admitted PhD students almost doubled, from 83,900 to 153,300, a staggering increase of almost 83%. In 2023 alone, 82,300 PhD students graduated. This rapid growth resembles a great leap forward. However, despite the surge in numbers, China lacks sufficient job opportunities to absorb such a large pool of doctoral graduates. This mismatch has sparked widespread online discussions and complaints.
10年前我参加高考的时候
10 years ago, during my college entrance exams, my homeroom teacher told me, in China, people aren't valuable, but talent is. 6 years ago, when I graduated college, my counselor said, in China, a bachelor's degree isn't worth much, but a master's degree is. 3 years ago, when I finished my master's, my advisor said, in China, a master's isn't worth that much, but a PhD is. Now that I've graduated with a PhD, my employer tells me, in China, education isn't worth much, but capital is. But the problem is, all my capital over the years went to paying tuition. However, it's worth noting that China's overall number of PhDs is not as high as it may seem. While the United States has around 6% of its population holding a doctoral degree, China's proportion is only about 0.8%. This means that for every million people, more than 600 in China hold a PhD, compared to over 10,000 in the United States. So why is there such a noticeable surplus of PhDs in China? Experts believe the issue lies in the scale, structure, and quality of doctoral education in China, which do not align well with the country's socioeconomic level. In recent years, the Chinese Communist Party has emphasized doctoral education. In 2020, China held its first national conference on postgraduate education since the founding of the People's Republic. In 2024, the CCP Central Office and State Council jointly issued rare guidance on accelerating high-quality development of doctoral education. However, experts argue that these policies are more about political appeasement and disconnected from real-world challenges. Robin Xing, Morgan Stanley's chief China economist in Hong Kong, told Nikkei Asia that China has significantly expanded its higher education system over the years. Yet its economy remains largely reliant on manufacturing and low-end service industries. Xing pointed out that this is a structural issue. China's economy is vast and undergoing gradual transformation. However, it will take time before it can develop into a more advanced economy like Japan, South Korea, or the United States. These nations have professional, high-end service sector capable of creating more and better quality jobs. Meanwhile, the challenging job market in China has significantly affected the value of doctoral degrees. In recent years, China's overall economic growth has slowed, with some industries shrinking or undergoing transformation. This has reduced the demand for highly educated talent from traditional employers. The tech sector's rapid growth has also plateaued, leading to hiring freezes and even widespread layoffs. Industries like real estate and finance have cut back on recruitment as part of structural adjustments. Under these conditions, universities and research institutions face limited capacity for hiring. Many have stringent requirements for academic backgrounds, political screenings, and administrative benchmarks, making it difficult for young PhDs to secure positions. On the corporate side, employers expect PhD holders to deliver immediate value, which makes it hard to justify their salaries. As a result, PhD graduates often find themselves in a dilemma: well-educated but lacking practical workplace experience, or equipped with skills honed in labs that don't translate easily into commercial value. According to data released by China's National Bureau of Statistics in 2023, the overall urban surveyed unemployment rate hovered around 5%. However, unemployment among 16 to 24-year-olds exceeded 20% and at one point surpassed 21%, setting a new record. Since most PhD graduates are older than 24, these statistics don't fully reflect their employment struggles. Still, social media and job forums are filled with posts from current and former PhD students expressing anxiety and frustration about their career prospects. Their concerns aren't just about finding a dream job, they reflect a deeper lack of confidence in their future growth. Experts attribute this to an imbalance in the CCP's approach to doctoral education. The focus has been overly skewed towards science and engineering fields, which disrupts the cycle connecting research, industry, and finance. This has led to a distorted employment structure that fails to meet the demands of the modern job market. Some experts argue that the CCP has historically been anti-intellectual. In the past, it declared that the more knowledge, the more reactionary. Universities were shut down during the Cultural Revolution and, even after reopening, focused mainly on science and engineering institutions. Although adjustments were made after the reform and opening up era, STEM disciplines remain the core of higher education in China. Today, STEM doctoral students still dominate in China. For instance, in 2022, out of 82,000 PhD graduates, 47,000 were in science and engineering, accounting for over 57%. This makes China the largest producer of STEM PhD globally, far surpassing even the United States, which has stronger universities and economic resources. This trend extends to Chinese students earning PhDs abroad. In 2022, 6,664 Chinese students earned PhDs in the United States, and over 90% were in science and engineering. Only 633 students earned PhDs in non-STEM fields. A 2021 study by Georgetown University's Center for Security and Emerging Technology found that in 2000, U.S. universities granted twice as many STEM PhDs as Chinese universities. By 2007, however, China has surpassed the U.S. in STEM PhD production. Based on current enrollment trends, China is projected to produce over 77,000 STEM PhD graduates annually by 2025, compared to about 40,000 in the U.S. If international students in the U.S. are excluded, the ratio of Chinese to U.S. STEM PhD graduates exceeds 3 to 1. As of 2025, the projections are largely accurate. Despite producing such a large number of STEM PhDs each year, most end up in similar career paths. Research shows that Chinese PhD graduates overwhelmingly pursue careers in academia. A study of PhD employment trends from 2015 to 2020 found that 45.6% of graduates took jobs at universities. Medical and healthcare institutions accounted for 17%, and research organizations for 10%. Only 5% found employment in private enterprises. In contrast, the situation in the United States is vastly different. In 2002, 52% of U.S. PhD graduates entered academia. By 2022, this figure had dropped to 33%. Meanwhile, those employed in business and industry doubled from 24% in 2002 to 48% in 2022. This disparity is reflected in patent commercialization rates. According to 2022 China Patent Survey report, only 16.9% of Chinese university patents were implemented, with a commercialization rate of just 3.9%. In comparison, U.S. university patents have a conversion rate of 50%. Many top American universities, like Stanford and UC Berkeley, have well-established systems for translating research into marketable innovations. Forbes reported that at least 35 U.S. billionaires earned PhDs before transitioning into the business world. This success is attributed to a robust capital market in the U.S., where research, industry, and finance form a virtuous cycle, supported by venture capital and thriving startups. Meanwhile, the CCP has heavily invested in STEM doctoral education, but systemic barriers in education, the economy, and society hinder progress. Historians point out that the devaluation of PhD degrees in China cannot be separated from broader discussions of the country's political and social systems. China's higher education system is highly bureaucratic. University presidents, vice presidents, deans, and department heads are ranked by administrative level, with decision-making power often concentrated in leadership rather than academic peer review. In some cases, expanding PhD admissions has become a tool for universities and education authorities to meet performance targets. Rising enrollment numbers, increased publications, and higher research funding create an illusion of prosperity. However, the quality of education and alignment with economic and social needs are often overlooked. Statistics may create the appearance of success, helping government agencies showcase achievements, but the reality is different. Scholars describe the rapid expansion of PhD programs as an inflated balloon. While it creates a short-term illusion of a well-educated society, the job market cannot absorb such a large group of highly educated individuals. This mismatch leaves many PhD graduates struggling to find meaningful employment. Ironically, as more PhDs fail to deliver the expected economic or social value, the facade of success collapses. Public discourse often turns this into a subject of ridicule. One person on social media even advised Chinese parents to stop spending excessively on tutoring if they realize early on that their child struggles academically. Instead, they suggested investing in their own business or buying property. They reasoned that even if the child doesn't excel academically, they could inherit a small business or have a home to live in, which would be better than endlessly pursuing education without clear benefits. The same person shared observations about second-generation or third-generation wealthy youth in China. Contrary to stereotypes, these young people are often hardworking, socially adept, and optimistic about challenges. Their upbringing is not the elite or privileged education many imagine. Their families do not view academic success as the only path forward. While the future remains uncertain, one thing is clear: academic credentials alone are no longer the sole standard for success. Without proper planning and acknowledgement of this reality, the current generation risks being weighed down by an outdated mindset.